Hey guys, welcome to Herding Little Cows to the Glory of God. This is part of the Thanksgiving dinner pantry challenge series, whatever you want to call it. And so we are making dinner rolls, but the do ahead dinner rolls because I have an appointment this afternoon. So we are going to mix these up, and then after I put them in the pan, I'll show you all these steps. But then we're going to put them in the fridge so that we can cook them later. And you can actually keep them in the fridge for up to 24 hours. So you can make these the day before Thanksgiving and then just bake them right before you're ready to get food on the table. So anyway, I'm doubling this recipe, but I'm getting this recipe out of this old cookbook where all my pages are falling out, and we're making these dinner rolls. My family really likes these. We haven't made them in a while. So I gotta get my bucket of flour. Okay, all of the stuff that I'm showing you today has been bought on the Pantry Challenge, and I keep these things in my pantry all the time. So you're gonna see it's not the same packaging as I bought on the Pantry Challenge. This sea salt, pink Himalayan sea salt, I bought it at Dollar Tree. It was $1.25 for this bag. You bought it on the challenge in like a container. It's white salt, same thing. Like use it the same way in the recipe. And I have this, which is bulk yeast. You bought the packets. So I will tell you how many packets it's gonna be, but I'm gonna measure out with a spoon, but I'm measuring a packet's worth. So I think everything else will be self-explanatory as we go. I'm doubling this for my family because I have a big family, but most people who are watching this probably don't have 10 people that we'll be feeding 11 people tonight at supper because my mom's gonna be here. So we'll be feeding 10 because the baby doesn't eat yet. I'll eat his roll. But anyway, most people can probably just use one of this recipe. It makes 15 rolls, but we're gonna have it with soup, and it's like a main part of our meal. It's not just a side. On Thanksgiving, you can plan probably one roll per person. So anyway, I'm making this video before the Thanksgiving one. You'll see, because we're gonna put all these up at the same time, but I'm gonna make one Thanksgiving one showing you like a fast speed through of how I make all of the food at the same time, showing you it's possible, but I'm making each one separate so that I can take time to make the video for you. And if there's a mess up, I can redo it.
This whole series of videos will be dropping day by day by day. It'll be like
Right.
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
So I don't know
Wednesday.
what day this is coming out in the thing, but you will see all the food prepared the first day, and then I'll give each video recipe after that. So this is the recipe for the dinner rolls. And I have not made this recipe on my channel, I don't think. So again, all the pantry ingredients. So if you just keep your pantry stocked, you can make all of this. This wasn't anything I bought for this Thanksgiving meal. So this recipe says to mix 2 cups of flour, which I'm gonna do 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I might need a bigger bowl. We will see. So mix 2 cups of the flour, which we're gonna put more flour in later. The sugar. Oh,
There's
and
butter in there, Karen.
yes, I'm gonna tell you about that in a second. There is butter in the bottom. I'll give you the measurement in a minute. So I need a 1/4 cup of sugar per recipe, so I'm doing a 1/2 cup all together. You need a 1/4 cup of softened butter, which is in the bottom.
Hello.
I had to soften it in my microwave because I decided last minute to make these. And the yeast. So you need 1 package of yeast per recipe, so I'm going to do 2 of my spoons. 1, 2. A package of yeast. This is a tablespoon, which is also 3 teaspoons. Good thing to know. You need 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast, but it doesn't have to be an exact measurement, so I do a little bit less than that. Some people just do a tablespoon per package because it's just easier for them to measure out. I just throw out a little bit. So you're supposed to do this part in a mixer, but I want to show you that you don't need to have special tools in your kitchen to make these foods. If you hear noises in the background, the baby's a little fussy today. Big sister's watching him in the living room. He's playing with toys. He is almost 6 months old, for those who haven't been watching my channel. And the other kids are out playing Uno on the porch. So kids playing a game, someone might think something's unfair. You might hear them in the background. Just saying. So this part, you're just mixing up the butter and all of that. The butter is soft, somewhat melted. If you had just put your butter on the counter on a warm day, it would have gotten soft. But we live in Maine and it is November and we keep the house fairly cool. So our butter would not have been soft enough to do this. So I warmed it up. But if you were like somewhere in Maine, we'd be fine. Okay, so I mixed those things. Now I need another bowl because that's not gonna fit. Here we go, another bowl. Push some stuff out of
Bigger, better bowl.
Bigger, better bowl. Okay. And it was cleaned this morning, yes. Okay, so I have to add this to my bowl. You will see that we still haven't filmed for the Thanksgiving series that you're going to see, because behind Mark is our turkey trying to thaw in the fast, speedy, safe thawing method of changing out water multiple times during the day, because it's a 20-pound turkey, and if I wait till it thaws in the fridge, we're going to be 6 days from now making this video, and I want you guys to have these recipes to be able to make for Thanksgiving. So you're supposed to mix all of that together, and then you're going to add a half a cup of very warm water and a half a cup of very warm milk. I'm using dry milk because that's what we bought on the recipe. So you're going to add what you need for a half a cup of milk, which would be like, oh, I gotta turn off my potatoes, or turn down my potatoes. We're making another part of the video. You'll see the mashed potato one later. And you can boil them over, that's perfectly fine. It's like making a mess on the counter. Sometimes you just have to do that when you're cooking. Believe me, my house is not perfect. I make mistakes.
Reality TV.
Do you want to tell them the reality about our potatoes? The one year we made potatoes? We tried to make a really big pot of potatoes.
Oh, yes.
We were dating at this point. Tried to make a really big pot of potatoes for Thanksgiving, and they got done after everyone had already finished dessert, was by the time they had finished boiling and gotten enough. Yeah.
I think I was in charge of the potatoes back then.
Yeah, and you thought we needed like 25 pounds for the 3 extra people we had over. And at the time it was me, you, and Nathaniel.
Yeah.
Like because Nathaniel's from Mark's first marriage. So it wasn't even like we had all these kids.
Yeah.
We had your mom, and we had that guy who lived down in the woods. I don't remember his name. He was a friend of yours, not mine. He was a really nice guy.
Is it Gideon?
No.
Lived down the way. Oh, Jimmy.
Jimmy. And then there were, maybe your dad came. I don't remember. Yeah, maybe your dad and mom. Anyway, okay. So you need that. You're going to put in, because I'm doing 2 batches, I need 1/3 of a cup, but you would need 1/6 of a cup so do a 1/2 of a 1/3 cup measure for yours. And I'm just mixing it up. It's going to be weak milk because I needed water and milk, if that makes sense. You can measure them separately if that's easier for your brain, but you need a 1/2 cup of water, a 1/2 cup of, like a 1/2 cup of plain water, and then a 1/2 cup of water and a 1/6 of a cup of dry milk for this. So I'm supposed to add warm water and the warm milk and 1 egg per recipe. Oh, can you turn my potatoes down? Film guy, we need help. So again, you could do all of this in a mixer. If you were doing it in a mixer, beat with electric mixer on low speed for 1 minute, scraping the bowl frequently. Beat on medium speed 1 minute, scraping bowl frequently, and then stir in enough remaining flour to make the dough easy to handle. I'm doing it all with a fork. My kids love this recipe though. We haven't made this for a long time. We used to make this recipe a lot when we went to a local church that had lunch together every week, because I could make them ahead and then I'd bake them at church during the second service, and we'd have hot rolls.
They smell good during church.
They do. Sometimes it's hard to sit through church when you have potluck afterwards because it smells so good. You're like, I really like church and I really like food. I want to eat. I want fellowship and I want food. By the way, fellowship and food do not mean the same thing. Just saying, a lot of our Baptist churches have taken to mean fellowship means we get together and eat, but we don't actually talk about God. And we're supposed to be getting... Huh? Yeah, church and sermon do not mean the same thing. Worship does not mean music. Getting all of our thoughts on things today. So anyway, I'm just mixing this together till it looks like it's all the same consistency. And I need a bigger fork because this one's hurting my hand. Again, real life here. I could turn off this video and make it seem like I have everything all together, but I don't. And that's okay. We all love tacos and they fall apart regularly, so it's okay. So now you're just gonna add enough flour to make it a dough like bread. I'll show you what that looks like when I get there. So anyway, fellowship does not mean food. When we get together with our church folk and we're having a meal, it's a great time to talk about the sermon. It's a great time to talk about what God's doing in your life that week. It's a great time to talk about what your family's been learning in family worship. It's a great time to share about maybe a song you heard on the Christian radio station or however you listen to music that really meant something to you. It's a good time to talk about hard things and let one another share each other's burdens, because that's something we're supposed to do too, that we don't do enough in our churches. We forget to mention to other people that we have burdens, because sometimes it hits a little too close to home, because sometimes it's sin that's causing the burden in our life, not our circumstances. I mean, maybe circumstances we caused by our sin, but sometimes we have to admit to being part of the problem we're having to deal with. And sometimes it's hard to admit that we have a burden we need someone else to help us bear, because it means we can't handle everything. But you know what? God doesn't want us to handle everything. God sometimes takes us to the very end of ourselves so that we rely on him. And that's a good thing. So anyway, so now you're just going to keep mixing, and you're going to knead it for about 5 minutes.
How much flour did you put in there afterward? Was it 3 cups?
Yeah, this is a cup measure. So whatever you saw in the video, that's how much I put in.
I think it was 3.
I'm going to add a little bit more too. You're just going to keep adding flour until it's not sticky anymore while you're kneading. It doesn't have to be totally not sticky. I mean, you're going to see I have some on my hands, but it's not like I can't get away from it sticky. And so, but what were the other things we said didn't equal each other? Worship. Worship does not equal music. Worship is coming to show together corporately, like that's what we're doing at church. We're showing that God is worthy of our praise. That's what worship is. And so that can be through the prayers. That can be through the singing. That can be through the talking to people before and after and reminding them of God's goodness and God's promises. What else, cameraman? You help me with this.
I'm going to hold up your sleeve for you.
Okay. Do you have anything to add about worship? We have a 17-year-old too. You have anything else to add about worship not being music? She worships through music all the time because she really likes music.
Why is the camera finding this section?
She really likes singing, so she does worship through music. But there's a lot of other ways. The pastor preaching.
And you can sing without worshiping, by the way. You could
Oh,
sing
yeah.
Christian songs and not actually be worshiping God. It's a matter of our heart, and what is in our heart often comes out of our mouths. Mm-hmm. Jesus said something like that. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So if all we're ever talking about...
overflow of the heart.
Exactly. So if all we ever have to talk about is sports and work and problems and complaining, then perhaps our hearts are more filled with not gratitude towards God, but complaining. So maybe we need to learn contentment.
Yes. Something you said about that made me think, what did you just say? I need to watch the video
What did I say?
to find it. I don't know. You said something about, worshiping. We don't always worship when we're singing. Like, it's not always worshipful when we're singing. But sometimes if you're at the end of yourself, like I was talking about before, singing a good hymn that reminds you of who God is, or a good Christian song. We don't listen to just hymns. But singing a song that reminds you of God's promises can sometimes bring your heart back into the right focus. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you can be singing not necessarily knowing how to worship in the midst of a hard time, and God will bring those truths to you through the songs you're singing.
And we have that in the Bible. We have like the Book of Lamentations, which is kind of it's a lament. It's a song. The Matt Papa and Matt Boswell song, Lord, from Sorrow's Deep I Call. I love that song. It's a beautiful song, but it's also this is we're admitting that life is hard kind of song, and we need God to give us strength to endure, and we need to remind ourselves of the promises of God and all the richness of the grace that we have in Christ comes to us, and oftentimes songs do that. I was actually talking to our one of the guys that leads music, plays guitar and sings at our church about this after church the other day, that sometimes it's the scripture that reminds us of a song that tells us something about God's character or his love for us, but sometimes it's actually a song that reminds us of the scripture that tells us of God's character. So make sure your songs are scriptural, because then they will remind you of things about God that are true that you can then apply to our lives and apply to our counsel and our prayers and all of that.
And songs in church are just as much of the teaching time as the sermon. And so if we're singing songs by certain groups, should I name the groups or not name the groups?
It's okay.
Okay. So certain songs by certain groups that are not scriptural and they're all about me, or they're kind of like the Jesus is my boyfriend song. Like, I'm just going to sing something that sounds kind of pleasant, but it's not Jesus is my savior and God is worthy of praise and he's bigger than us and we don't deserve him because we're sinners and all of that stuff, if you're just singing about how, God, you make me feel better, that's not really worshiping. She's laughing at me from... So anyway, you need to knead about 5 minutes. I don't know how long I've been kneading, but
Forever.
when you push, you want it to bounce back up. Do you see how it's springing back up? That's what I was doing. If you look back a couple minutes ago, I was pushing it with my finger and it was still denting, but you want it to spring back up like that. So after you do that, you're going to leave it in the bowl. It says that you can put butter on it or something at this point. I never do that step. I'm going to cover it with saran wrap and I'm going to leave it for an hour or until it's doubled. So that's what I'm going to do. And we will come back when I form it into balls. But thank you for our little discussion about worship not being music and all that about church. So we'll see you guys a little bit. Okay, it's been a little over an hour since we mixed up those dinner rolls. So an hour or till it's doubled. I got busy doing stuff. Real life in our house. Big sister, Virginia, who lives in Tennessee, is on the phone call with the 5-year-old and 7-year-old right now. And Naomi's holding the baby, who's a little bit grumpy. And I was doing math with one of the kids just a second ago, and Abigail's here washing dishes. So, and this guy's right here. So that's what's going on. Oh, and they're making a certificate on the computer for the school thing I keep mentioning that we'll talk about at some point, but for his own individual work, he's making a certificate. So anyway, this is the dough. And so it's about doubled. So we're going to push it down. Just get all the bubbles out. But it looks yummy. You see it's not sticky. This is how you want it. It's not sticky. If you needed to add flour at this point, you shouldn't need to add flour. If you mixed it up before and it was the texture that I showed you before, you shouldn't need to add flour. But if it's sticky, go ahead and add flour. I greased these 2 pans with butter. I just spread butter with my fingers all the way up, like up the sides as high as I need and everything. And then I rubbed my hands in the butter, so both hands have butter on them. You are going to make, with your one recipe, this would be the amount of dough you would have. And you're gonna make 15 rolls. So how I do that is I break off a third, and I break off a third. And then I'm going to make this one into approximately 5 rolls. So I'm going to make a line. And you're really going to want to think 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or I think 2 rolls and like 2 rolls worth and 2 rolls worth and 1 roll in the middle so I can divide it up. So each roll is going to be about that size.
High tech.
High tech. Yep. Use your fingers. You do not need extra stuff here. And then you just roll them. And you're going to see, they're going to be slightly different size. It's going to be okay.
The big ones are for daddy.
Big ones are for daddy, small ones for little people. So this is going to be 2 rolls worth. And what you're going to do is you're just going to pile them in your pan. So, again, you're going to want to make about 2 rolls worth. About 2 rolls worth. You have a roll. You can cut them all into their right sizes first and then roll them. I just tend to do it this way. Oops. In half. I'm going to spread these out more once I get more space. So about 2 rolls worth. About 2 rolls worth. It's really high tech stuff. What? He was working on math before. Oh, what are you going to show them?
So I'm going to show you a picture of handcuffs I made the other day.
You're working on a school project. We don't normally draw a lot of handcuffs in this house, do we?
No, I'm doing it for school because I'm learning about police officers because I want to be one when I grow up.
That's cool.
Okay.
Super awesome. Okay, where are we going?
So how you're going to do this in the pan is you're going to put them. So there's 5 rolls of 3. 5 rows of 3. Columns, rows, whatever direction you want to do them. But that's what you're going to do. They can touch. They don't have to touch. They're going to rise in the fridge. So what I'm going to do with these is I'm going to cover these, put them in the fridge for 2 to 24 hours. So these are going in the fridge because I have a doctor's appointment that we're going to leave for soon. we will cover these and put them in the fridge, and then when we get home, I will take them out and they will do their final rise. Then, when you watch our Thanksgiving video where we make these, we are going to make these the day before Thanksgiving, and then you're going to be able to take them out on the day of and let them just rise on your counter, and the only thing you have to do is throw them in the oven to cook. We're going to be doing a lot of these recipes where you can make them ahead of time so that your Thanksgiving isn't too busy. I made my white sauce ahead of time. I have, I'm going to have my potatoes all cut and wet, like cut and in water. If you don't put your potatoes in water, they'll turn brown. But I'm going to have all my potatoes cut and in water so that the day of I can just take the pan out of the oven and set them on the stove. I don't have to do all of that cutting process. I'm going to have, what was the other thing we were doing? Oh, we're gonna have the brownies.
Turkey gravy, carrots.
The brownies will be all made for dessert the day before, and you'll just have to bake them that day. So I'm trying to show you how to do something that doesn't take all day standing in the kitchen cooking, because the nice thing about Thanksgiving is it's a time to celebrate with family and friends, and you don't want to be standing over the stove the whole day. So I'm trying to make things that you can make ahead and then have nice warm food the day of. So these will get covered, and we will show you the baking process later.
Ooh.
These are the dinner rolls that have been cooking. They were at $3.75 for an amount of time. I don't know.
Till they look like that.
Till they look like this. And then we're going to put them down there next to our mashed potatoes. So that's how you make dinner rolls. They're really easy. These were just in the fridge overnight. I made them the day before Thanksgiving, even though it's not Thanksgiving. The day before Thanksgiving, and we are going to eat them in just a moment. See you guys next time on Herding Little Cows to the Glory of God.